Good afternoon. Let's see if we're already up here. All right. So there I am, 4 years old. And you know it's me because I have the nice embroidery, the 80s embroidery on my sweater to let you know that it's me. But when I was 4 years old, I was absolutely fascinated by the electrical outlet in my grandmother's living room. Now, at the time, I didn't have the vocabulary to understand what this thing was, but I do know that I was absolutely captivated by it. I wanted to know what it was, what it did, what was inside of it. So after examining it for a few minutes, I raced around the house looking for what I would consider the perfect tool for getting up in there, right? So of course, the perfect tool was a metal fork, because a metal fork has long, thin prongs, and they seemed perfect for, excavating the secrets inside of this wall thing. So I was just about to stick the fork in when I heard a voice behind me scream, "No! Put that down!" And I turned around, and it was my grandmother racing towards me. She snatched the fork out of my hand and told me, "I don't want to ever see you trying to stick a fork in a wall socket again. Do you understand me?" Now, my grandmother was an adult, and she was an intimidating adult, so I was terrified, but I was also a very curious and persistent child. So I asked, why? Why can't I play with that? Why can't I stick this fork in? To which my grandmother responded with 4 words, "Because I said so." Now, at 4 years old, I had already heard "because I said so" enough to know 2 things about it. One, "because I said so" coming from an adult always meant that was the end of the conversation. And 2, that I risked punishment if I pressed the issue. So I didn't. The fork was put away, and I never played with electrical outlets again, at least not in front of my grandmother. So fast forward 17 years later, and I'm a 22-year-old community organizer for a nonprofit organization. In this role, it is my job to work with neighbors and block club members and to really provide them with the support and resources necessary to help them address community issues that are of relevance to them in their neighborhoods. So I'm sitting in a block club meeting with approximately 15 block club members, the youngest of which is about 59 years old. These block club members live in a neighborhood that is facing serious challenges. There's blight, there's vacancies, there's businesses pulling out of the area, a lack of quality social services, failing schools, closing schools, but yet these block club members are talking about an issue that seems to dominate their meetings. It's an issue that comes up over and over again, and it sucks up a lot of their time. And that is the problem of youth. So the block club members are saying things like, "Oh, the young people in our neighborhood, they don't care. They're apathetic, they're lazy, they see trash in the street and they just walk past it. They're rude, they're disrespectful. No wonder our neighborhood's going down, they're the problem." And as I sat there and listened to these elders in the community make these disparaging comments about the young people in their community, it really bothered me. And I went home later that night and I thought about the block club members, I thought about my grandmother, and I thought about the interactions that I had with adults growing up. And I realized that although I was supported by a lot of really well-intentioned and loving adults, that adults tend to fall into these traps where we really disempower young people in certain ways, and then we blame them for acting disempowered. So we kind of get caught up in this cycle. And the 3 things that really kind of jumped out at me when I thought about this was that, 1, adults don't do enough to really take advantage of the golden opportunities and the teachable moments that we have with young people. It's in these moments that young people are able to gather information, they're able to really become the critical thinkers that we need them to become in order for them to really make a change, whether it's in their neighborhood, their communities, in this world. And so we as adults don't take advantage of that enough. That's 1. 2, because of that, we inadvertently create, promote, and cultivate the very qualities in young people that we later resent them for. And so when young people, through their actions and behaviors, mirror back to us and reflect the very ineffective ways that we engage them, then they become the problem. And then the last thing is that as adults, we don't really take advantage of what I call the why. So the why. And those are my kids, and they love asking why. But the why is really kind of a magical keyword of childhood, because why is really the tool that young people use to gather data. It's what they use to gather information that's going to help them develop a perspective, a worldview, and really learn how to process and navigate the world that they live in. So when young people ask why, they're trying to get information. They're asking us for something that they need, a resource. For us as adults, why is not always that magical. For us as adults, why is often a test of our patience. And it's really also a challenge to our adult supremacy, our authority. So we don't always view why as this magical thing that's going to give kids what they need to become leaders in the community. We see it as a nuisance. So thinking back to the experience with my grandmother, who, by the way, loved me, had the best intentions, wanted me to grow up to be a leader, but was just operating off of some of the conditioning that she has had as an adult, and that as adults we really need to become more cognizant of and aware of if we really want young people to be in a position where they can be leaders. So I thought about 4 different reasons or traps that adults can kind of fall into that cause us to disempower young people. One of those is fear. As adults, we've accumulated experiences, but we've also accumulated fear that goes along with those experiences. So when my grandmother saw me playing with the outlet, she wanted to stop me from frying myself to a crisp, which is what she's supposed to do. That's what we're supposed to do as adults, is if we see a child in danger, we're supposed to remove them from danger. However, after I was out of that danger and I asked why, she had a golden opportunity right there to provide me with some information as to why I shouldn't play with electrical outlets. But her fear of this electrical outlet was just, and me playing with it was so great that she didn't want to discuss it anymore. She didn't want me playing with it or thinking about it, and so she transferred her fear onto me. So that natural curiosity that I had as a child now becomes this fear of this thing that I don't have much information about, other than I shouldn't play with it because my grandmother said so. Another thing that we do to disempower youth is that we adhere to these social hierarchies, and a lot of adults still believe that children are to be seen and not heard. We still believe things like, a child should stay in a child's place. All of these things are kind of disempowering to young people, because it says that as a child, you don't have the right to ask for the information that you need to be a successful leader, both personally and on a social level. And then there's the underestimation of young people. My grandmother may have had a split moment where she thought about giving me the information that I needed, and maybe using it as a teachable moment to explain both the benefits and dangers of electricity. But she may have thought I didn't have the ability to process that. She may have thought, well, she won't understand this, so I won't get into that. A lot of times young people understand a lot more than what we think they do, and they're capable of a lot more than what we think they're capable of. And then the last one is a big one. It's impatience. As adults, we are always racing the clock. We're always trying to get from point A to B, and so we don't always take the time necessary to provide young people with the tools that they need. So what happens then when we have these disempowered young people who really kind of, are doing things because someone told them to, and not really proactively addressing the issues in the community? Well, in the 1960s, Dr. Stanley Milgram, he did a series of experiments around obedience and authority. And the outcome of these experiments led him to theorize that as people, we can occupy potentially two different states at any given time. The first is the autonomous state. And in this state, we make decisions based upon our own ideas, our own beliefs, our own desired outcomes. We act proactively, and we take responsibility for the decisions that are made. In opposition to the autonomous state, there's what Dr. Milgram called the agentive state. And in this state, people don't necessarily see themselves as autonomous individuals making decisions, but rather they see themselves as a vehicle for carrying out the wishes of an authority figure. In Dr. Milgram's experiments, he had people placed in situations where authority figures asked them to do things that went against their own ethics, their own moral conscience. And what he found was that people can occupy these very two different states. In the agentic state, people see themselves as a vessel for an authority figure's wishes. They don't trust their own decision-making, so they defer their decision-making to someone who they consider has more experience or higher position. And in this state, people don't act proactively, and they don't take responsibility. So it's my belief that a lot of times when we disempower young people and don't provide them with the tools that they need, we really set them up to kind of operate from this state where they're waiting on us to tell them what to do. They're waiting on adults to give them the cues and not necessarily acting proactively. When it comes to working with young people, I firmly believe that we need to move more away from instruction and more towards discovery. Working with young people as full participants, whether it's in their own education, in the community, and really kind of empowering them to kind of take the reins in the community. So it was this understanding that led my business partner and I, Lynn Williams, to form Raise It Up, which is a youth organization. At the same time that I was doing community organizing, I was also heavily involved in community arts as both a performance artist and a writer. And so I was able to see firsthand how community arts can really transform people both on a personal level and then even whole communities. So the mission of Raise It Up is to promote youth engagement, expression, and empowerment through performing arts, through community involvement, and through social justice initiatives. We envision a world where young people are creative and critical thinkers, shaping their lives and the life of their community. And we're guided by what we call the 3 E's. And the first one is engagement. And for us, engagement really means that young people are given the opportunities and the structures to participate in their community in meaningful and sustained ways, that they are invited to the table as full participants. In our program, that means that young people are participants in workshops and assemblies where we do a lot of awareness raisings about community issues and personal issues. We discuss things like identity, self-image, media literacy, racism, sexism. Young people are participants in this, dialoguing with both adults and peers. There we go. The second E is expression. It's not enough for us to raise awareness for young people, but really to provide them with a platform for expressing themselves and for forming responses to the information that they're getting. So in our organization, expression looks multiple ways. Because we deal heavily with the arts, expression, we have a lot of young people who are forming artistic responses to these social issues. They're creating their own books, publishing their own books, CDs, organizing their own art showcases, and all of it is connected to social justice issues. Excuse me. The second part is that we also have the social justice piece and the community involvement piece to our program. So really encouraging young people to express themselves on a local level, whether it's to public policy makers, politicians. Our young people are at city council meetings. They're just really speaking up about issues that are important to them, expression on a social level as well. And then also even within our organization, it's very important for us as staff that our programming is geared towards what young people say they want and what they want to see in the community. So we make safe spaces for young people to give us really critical feedback in terms of the trajectory of our organization. And then the last E is the one that I love the most, and it's the E of empowerment. Gordon McKenzie, in his book, Orbiting the Giant Hairball, which is a book about navigating just the bureaucracy of corporate America, talks about going into an elementary school and asking kindergartners how many of them considered themselves artists, and all of the kindergartners raising their hands. He asked the second graders, and he said about 70% of the second graders raised their hands. This went on all the way up to 6th grade. By the time he got to the 6th graders, only 6 of them raised their hands. Young people have forgotten that they are creators of their lives, creators of their communities, creators of this world. And they've forgotten that because they are always kind of dealing with these disempowering situations that strip them of their power and make them forget that they have creative power. So in our organization, empowerment is really important. We encourage young people, like I said, to engage community leaders. Our young people are involved in projects where they are assessing the community and trying to make sure that everybody in their community has access to healthy food. So they're partnering with local food organizations, some urban gardens to try to make that happen. There was a time when our city started trying to adopt more policies that the young people felt were targeting young people, and they challenged that. And so we're really working with young people to understand that if they want to see change, they have to actually make that happen, that they are the change. There are two quotes that I want to leave you all with, and they're quotes that are really important to me as a parent, as a youth advocate, and they really inform the work that we do at Raise It Up. The first is that children learn how to make good decisions by making good decisions and not by following directions. Young people, if we want them to be community leaders, we have to have them at the table, making the decisions, being involved, taking ownership. And then the last one is the most important thing that we can do as parents, as teachers, as allies to young people, is to teach children how to get along without us. That really is the definition of youth empowerment. And youth empowerment is critical not just to youth, but it's critical to us, it's critical to our communities, our neighborhoods, and to our world. So it's something that we should do because it's the right thing to do, and not just because I said so. Thank you.